The great hall on Nexus Prime was quiet. Elder Vorthak stood at the center of the crystal chamber, his forearms holding the sacred codex. The ancient book was older than most civilizations in the galaxy. Its pages held the wisdom of species that had learned hard lessons about survival among the stars. Around him, representatives from dozens of worlds sat in floating chairs. The Galactic Council only met when something important needed to be discussed. Today was one of those days. Vorthak opened the heavy book. His voice echoed through the chamber as he read the ancient words. The first law of galactic peace, he began, written by the ancients who came before us all, written in the blood of empires that no longer exist. The council members leaned forward. They had heard these words before, but today felt different. There was tension in the air. Do not cross the humans, Vorthak read slowly. Each word carried weight. This rule stands above all others. It is not a suggestion. It is not a guideline. It is the most important law in this galaxy. Admiral Vextar of the Catherian hegemony shifted in his seat. His red eyes glowed with anger. He had been quiet for too long. Elder Vorthak, he said, standing up. With respect, these are old stories, myths from a time when our technology was weak. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Several council members looked shocked. No one questioned the sacred codex. Vorthak's ancient eyes focused on the Catherian admiral. Admiral, do you know why this rule exists? I know the stories, Vextar replied. Tales of a primitive species from some backwater system. Stories meant to scare children. He gestured to his fellow Catherians. We are not children, Elder. We have the strongest military in this sector of the galaxy. The strongest military you know of, Vorthak corrected quietly. General Kelmons, another Catherian, stood up quickly. Admiral Vextar speaks only for himself, he said. The Catherian government respects the ancient laws. But Vextar waved his hand dismissively. General Kelmons is too careful. We have grown strong over the past century. Our fleets number in the thousands. Our weapons can destroy moons. Yet we still fear humans? A species that barely controls a few dozen star systems. Elder Vorthak closed the sacred codex. Admiral, let me tell you what the ancients wrote about humans. They wrote that humans are different from us. When we fight for territory, for resources, for power. When humans fight, they fight for something else entirely. What could be more powerful than our weapons? Vextar asked. Justice, Vorthak answered simply. When you hurt a human's family, when you attack their children, when you threaten their way of life, they become something beyond what you understand. They do not stop until the threat is gone. Completely gone. Far away from this discussion, on the edge of Catherian space, human colonists lived peaceful lives. Captain Dae-ho Kim commanded a small transport ship carrying families to new worlds. In the ship's halls, children played while their parents planned new lives among the stars. Engineer Heejin Park worked on the ship's systems. She was a quiet woman who smiled often and helped anyone who needed it. Her tools were always clean and organized. No one looking at her would guess she had once been a Special Forces soldier. Dr. Subin Lee treated a young boy's scraped knee in the medical bay. She spoke softly to calm the child's fears. Her gentle hands had once performed surgery in military, field hospitals, but now she focused on helping families stay healthy. Farmer Jun Woo Choi checked the plant samples he would use to start crops on their new world. He talked excitedly about growing food for the colony. His steady hands had once held sniper rifles, but now they held seeds and farming tools. These humans were heading to Kepler 442b, a world they would call New Hope. Another group of colonists traveled to Ross 128b, which they named Haven. Both colonies would be led by Governor Min-ho Yoon, a calm man who believed in building communities where families could thrive. The human colonies were small and peaceful. They focused on mining useful minerals and turning harsh worlds into places where humans could live. The colonists built schools for their children, hospitals for the sick, and farms to grow food. They traded fairly with alien merchants who visited their worlds. Security Chief Taejun Park oversaw the colony's small defense forces. Most of the security team were farmers and engineers who had military training. They hoped never to use their weapons, but they practiced regularly, just in case. Captain So-Young Kim led the colonial militia. She trained volunteers in basic combat skills, but their main job was to help during emergencies like storms or equipment failures. The humans had no plans for conquest or expansion beyond their small worlds. Back on Nexus Prime, Admiral Vexistar was not finished with his argument. "These humans you fear so much," he said to the Council. "They are weak. They live in tiny colonies on the edge of space. They have no great fleets, no powerful weapons that we can detect. Appearances can be deceiving," warned Elder Vorthak. "Can they?" Vextar asked. "Our scouts have observed their colonies. We see farmers and miners, not warriors. We see small settlements, not military bases. Where are these terrifying humans you speak of?" Several other council members began to nod. The Catherian military had indeed grown very strong. Their technology was advanced. Their fleets had conquered many worlds. Perhaps the old stories were just stories. General Kelmons tried again to calm his admiral. "Even if the humans are not as dangerous as the legends say, there is no reason to provoke them. They have done nothing to threaten us. They exist in space that could be ours," Vextar replied coldly. "They use resources that could fuel our expansion. They occupy worlds that could house our growing population." Elder Vorthak felt a chill run through his old body. He had seen this before in other species in other times. The pride that came before the fall, the confidence that led to destruction. "Admiral," he said urgently, "I beg you to reconsider. The rule exists for a reason. Every species that has broken it has paid a terrible price." "What price?" Vexitar demanded. "Show me the fleets that will come for us. Show me the weapons that will destroy us. Show me these mighty humans who will bring justice to the galaxy." The chamber fell silent. Elder Vorthak stared at the Catherian admiral for a long moment. Finally, he spoke very quietly. "You are about to find out." The council session ended with tension thick in the air. As the representatives returned to their ships, Elder Vorthak remained in the crystal chamber. He held the sacred codex close to his chest and whispered an ancient prayer for the galaxy. He knew what was coming. The Catherians would attack the human colonies. They would cross the line that should never be crossed. And then the galaxy would remember why the rule existed. In the peaceful human colonies, families continued their daily lives. They had no idea that their fate was being decided by alien powers far away. They worked and played and dreamed of the future, while across the galaxy, a storm began to build. 3 weeks after the council meeting, Admiral Vexistar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the viewport, he could see his massive fleet. Over 200 ships floated in perfect formation. Battleships, destroyers, and troop carriers filled the space around him. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, "all ships are ready for the attack." Vextar smiled. "Begin the assault on the human colonies. Show the galaxy that the Catherian hegemony fears no one." General Kelmons stood beside him, looking uncomfortable. "Admiral, I must protest one final time. This action goes against the wisdom of ages." "Your protest is noted and ignored," Vextar replied coldly. "Today we make history. The Catherian fleet jumped to hyperspace. Their destination, the peaceful human colonies of New Hope and Haven. On New Hope, Governor Minho Yoon was reviewing agricultural reports when alarms began to sound. He rushed to the colony's command center, where Security Chief Taejun Park was staring at sensor displays with disbelief. "Governor," Taejun said, his voice tight with worry, "we have over 100 alien ships dropping out of hyperspace. They're not responding to our communication attempts." Minho felt his stomach drop. "Are they attacking?" The answer came in the form of energy beams striking the colony's outer buildings. Explosions lit up the settlement as the Catherian fleet opened fire from orbit. "All civilians to emergency shelters," Minho ordered. "Send a distress signal to Earth immediately." Captain So-Young Kim was training with the militia when the attack began. She quickly organized the volunteers into defensive positions. Engineer Hee-Jin Park grabbed her toolkit and ran toward the damaged buildings. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she shut down power systems and sealed breaches. Dr. Subin Lee rushed to the medical center as wounded colonists began arriving. Her gentle demeanor changed to focused determination as she worked to save lives. Her military training took over as she organized triage and prepared for surgery. Farmer Jun Woo Choi helped evacuate families to the underground shelters. When he saw Catherian dropships landing near the colony, he grabbed a rifle from the armory. His hands remembered skills he had hoped never to use again. The battle for New Hope was fierce, but short. The human colonists fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed by superior numbers and firepower. Security Chief Tae Jun Park coordinated the defense until a Catherian energy blast brought down the communications tower. Within 6 hours, both human colonies had fallen. Governor Min Ho-yoon was captured along with scientist Nara Lim and hundreds of other colonists. The Catherians broadcast their victory across the galaxy, showing footage of defeated humans being loaded onto prison ships. Admiral Vextar stood triumphantly in the ruins of New Hope's government building. "Look how easily they fall," he announced to his officers, "the mighty humans that the galaxy fears so much." But the Admiral had made a crucial mistake. Every human colony, no matter how small or remote, maintained a quantum entanglement communicator linked directly to Earth. The moment the attack began, the signal reached Admiral Kyung-soo Jang at Earth Defense Command. Admiral Jang stared at the incoming data with growing fury. Images of burning buildings, wounded civilians, and captured families filled his screens. He called an emergency meeting of the Human Defense Directorate. Fleet Admiral Yoon Ji-song arrived at the meeting within minutes. Military Coordinator Dong-hyun Ko was already pulling up strategic displays. Other senior officers filled the room quickly. "Confirm the reports," Admiral Jang ordered. "Confirmed," replied Coordinator Ko. 2 colonies attacked without warning. Approximately 800 civilians captured or killed. The attackers are Catherian forces. "Do we know why?" asked Admiral Song. "Unknown. The colonies were peaceful, mining and agricultural settlements. They posed no threat to anyone." Admiral Jang stood slowly. His voice was calm, but everyone in the room could hear the anger beneath it. "They crossed the line." Admiral Song nodded. "What are your orders?" "Begin Protocol 7, Jang said quietly. "Full mobilization. Every fleet, every ship, every soldier. The galaxy has forgotten why the rule exists. It's time to remind them." Across human space, the response was swift and coordinated. Military bases that had been disguised as civilian facilities revealed their true nature. Ships that appeared to be cargo haulers deployed hidden weapon systems. Citizens who seemed to be simple farmers and engineers reported to military units. The truth about human space began to emerge. Every human world was a fortress. Every human ship carried military-grade weapons. Every human citizen had completed mandatory military service and remained in the reserves for life. Engineer Hyejin Park had been a demolitions expert in the Special Forces. Farmer Jun Woo Choi was a retired Marine sniper with over 200 confirmed kills. Dr. Subin Lee had performed surgery in the brutal Proxima Centauri War, a conflict the galaxy had never heard about because humanity had kept it secret. Even the captured Governor Min Ho-yoon had once commanded a destroyer squadron. Scientist Nara Lim had designed some of humanity's most advanced weapon systems. The peaceful colonists were veterans of wars the galaxy couldn't imagine. Captain Sungmin Lee commanded the stealth reconnaissance ship Silent Thunder. His ship had been watching Catherian movements for weeks, invisible to their sensors. He began documenting what the aliens had awakened. From his hidden position, Captain Lee watched as human defense grids came online throughout the sector. Space. Stations that had seemed like simple trading posts extended massive weapon arrays. Asteroid mining facilities revealed themselves to be hidden military depots. The transformation was stunning. Within days, human space changed from a collection of peaceful colonies to a military complex that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. Meanwhile, Admiral Vextar was planning his next attacks. The easy victory over the human colonies had convinced him that humans were indeed weak. He began targeting other human settlements, including the major colony of New Sol. "Prepare the fleet for the next assault," he ordered. "We will take 3 more human worlds before the week is over." General Kelmans watched the preparations with growing dread. Something felt wrong. The humans had not responded to the attacks. No angry messages, no threats, no diplomatic protests, just silence. "Admiral," he said carefully, "perhaps we should consolidate our gains before advancing further." "Nonsense," Vextar replied. "The humans are clearly too weak to respond. We will continue the attacks until all their territory belongs to us." But the silence from human space was not weakness. It was preparation. Elder Vorthak tried desperately to contact Earth. He sent message after message offering to mediate, begging for a chance to find a peaceful solution. The response was always the same automated message. "The matter is now beyond diplomatic resolution." The Elder knew what those words meant. He had heard them before long ago when his own people had made the mistake of attacking a human trade convoy. The Zilinian Empire had barely survived the consequences. In the Catherian capital, intelligence reports began arriving that worried the more thoughtful military leaders. Deep space monitoring stations on the edge of their territory had stopped reporting. Patrol fleets had gone silent. Scout ships sent to investigate had also vanished. Equipment failures. Admiral Vextar dismissed the reports. Old technology breaking down. But General Kelmon studied the pattern of disappearances. They formed a perfect circle around Catherian space, as if something was methodically eliminating their outer defenses. "Admiral," he said urgently, "I believe we are being surrounded, Bach. By whom?" Vextar laughed. "The mighty human fleet that no one has ever seen?" Captain Sungmin Lee continued his observations from the silent thunder. He watched human ships moving through space like ghosts, invisible to Catherian sensors. Fleet Admiral Yunji Song's massive dreadnought Indomitable Spirit led a formation of ships so large it would blot out the sun of any world they approached. But this was not just one fleet. Captain Lee's sensors detected dozens of similar formations, moving through hyperspace, all converging on Catherian territory from different directions. The storm was gathering. Soon the galaxy would learn why the ancient rule existed. The Catherians had crossed the humans, and now they would face the consequences. In the captured colonies, the human prisoners waited quietly in their cells. Governor Min Ho Yoon had managed to send a coded message to the other captives. "Help is coming. Be ready." They were ready. They had always been ready. The galaxy was about to discover what humans became when their families were threatened. The silence from human space grew deeper each day. Alien traders who had regular business with human colonies found empty space where stations used to be. Diplomatic messages went unanswered. Even routine commercial broadcasts had stopped. Elder Vorthak called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives arrived looking confused and worried. They had never seen anything like this before. "Human space has gone completely dark," reported Ambassador Thelvin from the Trade Federation. "Our merchant ships cannot find any human facilities. It's as if they all disappeared overnight." "Not disappeared," corrected Elder Vorthak grimly. "Hidden. They are preparing for war." Admiral Vextar attended the session via hologram from his flagship. He looked confident and relaxed. "Elder Vorthak continues to spread fear about humans. Our recent victories prove they are not the threat you imagine. Your victories may have awakened something you do not understand," the Elder warned. "What could they awaken?" Vextar laughed. "We have captured their colonies and prisoners. If humans were truly dangerous, where is their response?" As if to answer his question, reports began arriving from Catherian space. Deep space monitoring. Stations had gone completely silent. Not destroyed in battle, not sending distress signals, just gone. Long-range sensors detected nothing where the stations used to be. General Kelmons stood in the Catherian Military Command Center, studying the reports with growing alarm. The pattern was clear now. Something was systematically eliminating their outer defenses, moving in a perfect circle around their territory. Admiral, he transmitted to Vextar, we need to discuss these disappearances. Equipment failures, Vextar replied dismissively. Old stations breaking down. Sir, 17 stations don't fail simultaneously without cause. Then send patrol fleets to investigate. General Kelmans had already tried that. 3 patrol groups had been dispatched to check on the silent stations. None had reported back. It was as if they had flown into empty space and simply vanished. Captain Sungmin Lee continued his surveillance from the silent thunder. His stealth ship observed the systematic elimination of Cytherian defenses with professional interest. The human ships responsible were so advanced that they could erase enemy installations without leaving any trace. But Lee's primary mission was to document what humanity had become during its years of peaceful expansion. The truth was staggering. Every human settlement was connected by a vast military network. Every civilian ship carried weapons that could level cities. Every human citizen was a trained soldier. The peaceful mining colony on Kepler 442b had been built over a massive underground military complex. The simple agricultural settlement on Ross 128b contained weapon stockpiles that could arm entire armies. The humans had not been building colonies, they had been building fortresses. Administrator Wu Jin Han, who governed the major colony of New Seoul, revealed the truth in a coded transmission to Earth. All defensive positions are ready. Civilian evacuation is complete. We await your orders. New Seoul was not just a colony. It was the secret headquarters of the Human Colonial Defense Force. Beneath its peaceful surface lay command centers, shipyards, and training facilities that rivaled anything on Earth. Engineer Hai-Jin Park, now revealed as a former Special Forces demolitions expert, had helped design the colony's defenses. The seemingly innocent mining equipment could be converted to military use within hours. The agricultural buildings were actually armored bunkers connected by underground tunnels. Dr. Subin Lee, whose gentle hands had once performed surgery in military field hospitals, maintained the colony's hidden medical facilities. These were not just hospitals but trauma centers designed to treat massive casualties during wartime. Farmer Junwoo Choi, the retired Marine sniper, had carefully mapped every approach to the colony. His farming activities had actually been reconnaissance missions to identify defensive positions and escape routes. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Yoon Ji-song stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit. Her massive dreadnought was larger than most Cytherian space stations. Around her, the human fleet stretched beyond the horizon. Hundreds of ships, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. But this was not the only fleet. Admiral Kyung-soo Jang had mobilized everything. From hidden bases throughout human space, dozens of fleets were moving toward Cytherian territory. Each approached from a different direction, using routes that avoided all known alien sensors. Military Coordinator Dong-Hyun Ko monitored the movements from Earth Defense Command. His screens showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with countless human ships converging on their target. The Cytherians had no idea what was coming. All fleets report ready status, Ko announced to Admiral Jang. Execute Phase 1. Jang ordered quietly. Throughout Cytherian space, the disappearances accelerated. Not just monitoring stations now, but patrol fleets, supply convoys, even small orbital platforms. Anything military simply vanished without explanation. General Kelmans finally convinced Admiral Vextar to take the situation seriously. A full battle fleet was dispatched to investigate the outer rim disappearances. The fleet consisted of 30 warships, including 2 heavy cruisers and a command carrier. The fleet reached the edge of Cytherian space and began scanning for threats. Their sensors detected nothing unusual. Space appeared completely empty. The fleet commander reported that he found no trace of the missing stations or ships. Then the fleet stopped transmitting. In the command center, General Kelmans watched, in horror, as 30 ships simply disappeared from his sensors. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone. No explosion, no debris, no distress signals, just empty space. Admiral, he transmitted urgently to Vextar. We have lost an entire battle fleet. For the first time, Admiral Vextar looked concerned. How is that possible? I don't know, sir. They were there, then they weren't. Captain Jae-hyun Oh commanded one of the human ships responsible for the disappearances. His vessel, the Shadow Strike, could phase in and out of normal space using technology the galaxy had never seen. When Catherian ships encountered his fleet, they found themselves facing enemies they could not detect or fight. The battles, if they could be called battles, were over in minutes. Human weapons tore through Catherian defenses like they were made of paper. Advanced shields protected the human ships from return fire. The Catherians never had a chance to understand what was happening to them. Commander Yujin Kwan led another, human force that specialized in electronic warfare. Her ships could disable entire enemy fleets without firing a single physical weapon. They simply reached out with invisible energy fields and shut down every system on the Catherian vessels. The captured Catherian crews were transported to secure facilities where they were treated well, but kept completely isolated. The galaxy could not learn about human capabilities until the operation was complete. Back on the council world of Nexus Prime, Elder Vorthak received scattered reports of the disappearances. He knew what they meant. The humans were clearing the battlefield, removing all witnesses and obstacles before revealing themselves. "The storm is coming," he whispered to his aide. "Contact all council members. Tell them to prepare for the revelation." Admiral Vextar finally began to understand the magnitude of his mistake. The easy victories over human colonies had been a trap. The humans had allowed him to attack, had let him believe he was winning, while they prepared their response. "How many ships do we have left in the outer sectors?" he asked General Kelmans. "None, sir. Every patrol, every station, every defensive position beyond the inner core has gone silent." "That's impossible. We had thousands of ships out there." "Had, sir." Past tense. For the first time in his career, Admiral Vextar felt real fear. He was facing an enemy he could not see, could not understand, and could not fight. The humans had not just responded to his attacks, they had surrounded his entire empire without him knowing it. Captain Mi-kyung-an led a fighter squadron from the Indomitable Spirit. Her pilots were among the best in human space, trained for missions that pushed the limits of what organic beings could survive. They flew ships that could outmaneuver anything the Catherians possessed. During a reconnaissance mission near the Catherian capital, Captain An observed the enemy fleet formations. She counted over 800 warships concentrated around their core worlds. It was an impressive force by galactic standards. It was also completely inadequate for what was coming. "Admiral Song," she reported back to the Indomitable Spirit. "Enemy fleet strength confirmed. They have gathered most of their remaining forces near the capital." "Excellent," Admiral Song replied. "They have made our job easier." The human fleets continued their approach, invisible to Catherian sensors, silent as death itself. Soon they would emerge from the darkness and show the galaxy what humanity had become during its years of peaceful expansion. Admiral Vextar stood on his bridge, staring out at his remaining fleet. He still commanded impressive firepower, but doubt gnawed at him. How had the humans eliminated so many of his ships without him even knowing they were under attack? "Perhaps," General Kelmon suggested quietly, "we should attempt to negotiate." "Negotiate?" Vextar turned on him angrily. "We are the Catherian hegemony. We do not negotiate with primitives." The storm finally broke on a Tuesday morning. Admiral Vextar was reviewing defense plans when alarms began shrieking throughout his flagship. His tactical officer stared at the sensor displays with disbelief. "Admiral," the officer stammered, "we have multiple contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Hundreds of ships." "Where?" Vextar demanded. "Everywhere, sir. They're surrounding our entire fleet." On the main viewer, space began to fill with human warships. They appeared from every direction, emerging from hyperspace in perfect formation. Ship after ship materialized until the stars themselves were blocked out by their hulls. Fleet Admiral Yoon-ji Song stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, watching the Catherian fleet scramble to respond. Her dreadnought was larger than their biggest battleships. Around her, the human fleet stretched in all directions, a wall of military might that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Admiral Song," came the voice of Admiral Kyung-Soo Jang from Earth Defense Command. "You are authorized to begin liberation operations." "Understood, sir," Song replied. "Beginning rescue of our people." Captain Jae Hyun Oh led the liberation force toward the prison ships holding the human colonists. His ships moved with precision. Their weapon systems locked onto Catherian vessels that held their families and friends. The rescued Governor Min Ho-yoon and scientist Nara Lim had managed to transmit detailed intelligence about Catherian defenses from their prison cells. Their information proved invaluable as human forces moved to free the captives. "This is Captain O to all Catherian vessels holding human prisoners," he broadcast on all frequencies. "Release the captives immediately, and you will be allowed to surrender. Refuse, and you will be destroyed." Several Catherian prison ships immediately began releasing their human captives. Their commanders had no desire to fight an enemy that had surrounded their entire fleet. But others, following Admiral Vextar's orders, prepared to use the prisoners as shields. They learned too late that humans did not negotiate when their families were threatened. Captain Mi Kyung-on's fighter squadron executed an attack run that would become legendary. Her pilots flew between enemy ships with impossible precision, targeting specific weapon systems while avoiding any damage to the areas where prisoners were held. The fighter craft moved like living things, performing maneuvers that should have killed their pilots from the stress forces alone. But human pilots were trained differently than other species. They pushed their bodies beyond normal limits, accepting pain and injury to save their people. Commander Yoo-jin Kwon led the assault on Catherian military installations throughout their territory. Her ships appeared at strategic points across the empire, striking with devastating effect. Shipyards, command centers, and weapon depots were reduced to atomic dust in minutes. The Catherian defense fleets tried to respond, but they found themselves fighting an enemy unlike anything they had encountered. Human ships phased in and out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to target. When they were hit, their shields absorbed damage that would have destroyed any other vessel. But it was not just the technology that overwhelmed the Catherians. It was the humans themselves. Unlike other species that relied on automated systems and artificial intelligence, every human ship was crewed by soldiers who fought with personal dedication. They were not conquering territory or seeking resources. They were bringing justice to those who had harmed their families. Engineer Hae-jin Park, now wearing her old Special Forces uniform, led a boarding party to rescue prisoners from a Catherian command ship. She moved through the enemy vessel with deadly efficiency, her tools of peace transformed into instruments of war. Dr. Subin Lee worked frantically in a mobile medical unit, treating rescued colonists who had been injured during their captivity. Her gentle hands moved with surgical precision as she saved lives while battles raged around her. Farmer Junwoo Choi took position as a sniper on one of the human assault ships. His steady hands guided smart bullets across impossible distances, striking Catherian officers who were threatening prisoners. Each shot was perfect, each target eliminated with surgical precision. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Human coordination was flawless. Their weapons were decades ahead of anything the Catherians possessed. Their shields could withstand the combined fire of entire enemy fleets. Admiral Vextar watched his empire crumble in real time. Reports flooded in from across Catherian space. Every military installation was under attack. Every defense fleet was being systematically destroyed. His 1,000-year empire was falling in a matter of hours. "Admiral," General Kelmon said urgently, "we must surrender. We cannot fight this enemy." "Never," Vextar shouted. "We are the Catherian hegemony. We do not surrender to anyone." "Sir, they are not just defeating us, they are erasing us. In 6 hours, they have destroyed more of our military than we lost in the past century of warfare." But Admiral Vexitar's pride would not allow him to admit defeat. He ordered his remaining ships to fight to the last vessel, to take as many humans with them as possible. It was then that Admiral Kyung-Soo Jang made his legendary transmission. The message was broadcast on all frequencies in every language to every corner of the galaxy. "Admiral Vexitar," Jang's voice was calm and cold, "you have crossed the line. You attacked our families, captured our children, threatened our way. of life. You believed we were weak because we chose peace. You were wrong. The transmission continued as human ships systematically destroyed every Catherian military vessel that refused to surrender. You demanded to see our fleets. You asked to face our weapons. You questioned our resolve. Now you have your answer. We did not want this war, Jiang continued. We wanted to live in peace, to build our colonies, to raise our children among the stars. You took that choice away from us, now we take that choice away from you. Admiral Vextar tried to respond, to offer surrender, to beg for mercy, but Admiral Jiang's voice cut through his transmission like a blade. You crossed the line. There is no surrender. The final assault on the Catherian capital fleet was devastating. Human ships moved through their formations like predators among prey. Advanced weapons tore apart enemy vessels faster than the Catherians could react. Captain Sungmin Lee documented the battle from his position on the Silent Thunder. He watched as 1,000 years of Catherian military might was reduced to debris in less than 12 hours. The technology gap was stunning. Human weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand the output of entire stars. Their ships moved through space in ways that defied known physics. But the most terrifying aspect was not the technology. It was the humans operating it. They fought with a cold fury that never wavered, never hesitated, never showed mercy to those who threatened their families. Administrator Wu Jinhan coordinated the relief efforts for rescued prisoners from his command center on New Seoul. The peaceful colony revealed its true nature as medical ships, supply vessels, and reconstruction teams deployed to help the survivors. The captured colonies were quickly rebuilt, stronger than before. Human engineering. Teams worked around the clock to repair the damage caused by the Catherian attacks. The colonists returned to find their homes not just restored but improved. Throughout the battle, one thing became clear to observers across the galaxy. The humans were not conquering the Catherian Empire. They were surgically removing its ability to threaten anyone ever again. Every military installation was destroyed. Every warship was eliminated. But civilian populations were carefully protected, relocated to safer worlds with better living conditions than they had enjoyed under the hegemony. The humans did not want slaves or territory. They wanted justice. As the battle entered its final phase, Admiral Vextar found himself alone on his flagship, his fleet destroyed around him. He finally understood the magnitude of his error. The humans had not been hiding because they were weak. They had been hiding because they were too strong. Admiral Song, came a transmission from his dying ship. This is Admiral Vextar. I surrender. Please, show mercy to my people. Fleet Admiral Yoonji Song's response was heard throughout the galaxy. Your people will be safe, Admiral. They will be relocated to better worlds given freedom and opportunity. But you crossed the line. The Eternal Dominion was the last Catherian warship to fall. Its destruction marked the end of the Catherian hegemony as a military power. In less than 24 hours, humanity had dismantled an empire that had threatened the galaxy for centuries. But the storm was not yet over. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had a message to deliver. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. Across the galaxy, every government, every military, every civilian population watched the aftermath in stunned disbelief. In less than 24 hours, the mighty Catherian hegemony had been completely destroyed as a military power. Their 1,000-year empire had fallen to an enemy most had considered primitive. Elder Vorthak called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Representatives arrived in a state of shock, many still unable to process what they had witnessed. The great crystal chamber on Nexus Prime had never seen such tension. Members of the council, Vorthak began, his ancient voice heavy with sorrow. We have witnessed the breaking of the oldest law in our galaxy. We have seen the consequences. Reports continued to flood in from across former Catherian space. Every military installation had been reduced to atomic dust. Every warship had been eliminated without exception. The systematic destruction was complete and absolute, but equally shocking were the reports about civilian populations. Not one non-military Catherian had been harmed. In fact, the humans had relocated entire populations to better worlds, providing food, shelter, and medical care superior to what they had received under their own government. Ambassador Thelvin from the Trade Federation read from his intelligence reports with a shaking voice. The humans have established refugee camps on 17 worlds. The former Catherian civilians report better living conditions than they have known in generations. They have access to advanced medical care, education systems, and economic opportunities. This is not conquest, observed Representative Zorkan from the Mining Guild. This is something else entirely. Elder Vorthak nodded grimly. This is justice, human justice. They do not seek to rule or enslave. They seek to eliminate threats and protect the innocent. General Kelmans, one of the few surviving Catherian military officers, had been granted permission to address the council. He stood before them, his uniform stripped of rank insignia, his eyes haunted by what he had witnessed. Honorable council members, he began. I was there. I saw what humanity truly is. We thought we were attacking weak colonies on the edge of space. We were wrong. The general's voice grew quiet as he continued. Every human settlement is a fortress. Every human civilian is a trained soldier. Every human ship carries weapons that can destroy moons. They have been building this capability for generations, hiding it behind a facade of peaceful expansion. But that is not the most terrifying thing about them, Kelmans added. The most terrifying thing is their restraint. They could have wiped out every Catherian in the galaxy. Instead, they chose to save us from our own leaders. The council chamber erupted in nervous whispers. Several representatives demanded to know how humanity had hidden such massive military capabilities. Others wanted to know why humans had never used their power before. Because they do not fight for conquest, Elder Vorthak explained. They fight for justice. When you threaten their families, when you attack their children, when you cross that sacred line, they become something beyond normal warfare. They become a force of nature. On Earth, Admiral Kyung-Soo-jang reviewed the final battle reports with satisfaction. The operation had been executed flawlessly. Every objective achieved, every human life saved, every threat eliminated. Casualty report? He asked Military Coordinator Dong-hyun Ko. 0 human military deaths, sir. 17 wounded, all expected to make full recoveries. Former Catherian civilian casualties are also 0. Excellent. Begin Phase 2 of the operation. Phase 2 was not military action. It was diplomacy. Captain Dae-ho Kim, now promoted to admiral for his leadership during the colony defense, was chosen to represent humanity before the Galactic Council. Admiral Kim arrived at Nexus Prime aboard a single human ship. The vessel was small by human fleet standards, but still larger and more advanced than anything in the Council's protection force. Its very presence reminded everyone of what they had witnessed. When Admiral Kim entered the crystal chamber, the silence was absolute. Representatives from dozens of worlds stared at the human with a mixture of fear and respect. This was their first close look at one of the beings who had just redefined galactic warfare. Kim was not an imposing figure. He stood average height for a human, with calm eyes and steady hands. He wore a simple uniform with minimal decorations. Nothing about his appearance suggested the devastating military power he represented. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Kim began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I come before you not as a conqueror, but as someone who seeks to prevent future tragedies. Elder Vorthak gestured for him to continue. The Elder was one of the few beings present who was not surprised by recent events. He had tried to warn them all. My people do not seek to rule this galaxy, Kim continued. We want to live in peace, to build our communities, to raise our children among the stars. We have always wanted these simple things. The Admiral's voice grew more serious. But peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of justice. When innocent families are threatened, when children are attacked, when peaceful settlements are destroyed, peace dies. Kim looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from different worlds. Admiral Vextar believed he was attacking weak colonies. He was attacking our families. He believed he was capturing territory. He was threatening our children. He believed he was demonstrating strength. He was crossing a line that should never be crossed. We gave the Cytherians every chance to stop, Kim continued. We could have destroyed their fleet when they first entered our space. We could have eliminated their empire before they attacked a single colony. Instead, we allowed them to reveal their intentions. The human admiral paused, letting his words sink in. They chose to harm innocent people. They chose to threaten families. They chose to cross the line, and they learned why that line exists. General Kelmon stood up, his voice heavy with regret. Admiral Kim speaks the truth. We were warned repeatedly. We ignored those warnings because we believed ourselves superior. We learned otherwise. The rule exists for a reason, Kim continued. It was written by species who learned this lesson before you. Every empire that has crossed humans has fallen. Not because we seek conquest, but because we cannot allow threats to our families to continue existing. Admiral Kim's voice became softer, but somehow more frightening. We have returned to our quiet lives. Our colonies are rebuilding. Our children are playing in streets that are safe again. Our families are together. But we are watching, he added. We are always watching. The galaxy now knows what we are capable of. The question is whether you will remember. The Admiral walked to the center of the chamber, where the sacred codex rested on its ancient pedestal. He opened the massive book to a blank page and began to write with a stylus provided by Elder Vorthek. I add this entry to the sacred codex, Kim announced as he wrote. Written not in anger, but in hope that future generations will be wiser than the last. He read his words aloud as he wrote them. We thought the rule was a suggestion born of ancient fear. We learned it was a warning written in the ashes of empires. The humans sleep, but they do not slumber. They build, but they do not forget. They forgive, but they do not ignore. Cross them, and you will understand why every species before you wrote the same rule. Do not cross the humans. Kim closed the codex and returned to his position. My people are returning to their normal lives now. Engineer Hee-Jin Park is fixing water recyclers on New Hope. Dr. Subin Lee is treating children with scraped knees. Farmer Junwoo Choi is planting crops for the next harvest. They are peaceful people, he continued. They want simple, quiet lives. But they are also soldiers, every one of them. They will remain soldiers for as long as threats exist in this galaxy. The Admiral's final words became legendary throughout known space. We want peace. We have always wanted peace. But peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of justice. Cross us again, and there will be no warnings, no negotiations, no mercy. There will be only justice. Admiral Kim left the council chamber as quietly as he had arrived. His small ship departed Nexus Prime and vanished into hyperspace, returning to the human colonies where normal life was resuming. Governor Min-Ho Yoon had returned to his duties, overseeing the reconstruction of New Hope. The colony was being rebuilt stronger than before, with better facilities for the families who called it home. Engineer Hee-Jin Park worked on improving the colony's infrastructure, her deadly skills hidden once again behind her gentle smile and helpful nature. Dr. Subin Lee treated patients in the new medical center, her surgical skills serving life rather than war. Farmer Junwoo Choi planted seeds in fields that would feed the growing community, his sniper rifle secured in an armory that everyone hoped would never be needed again, output and mineral extraction, the colony's military capabilities hidden beneath the routine of civilian life. Across human space, life returned to its peaceful rhythm. Children went to school, parents worked at their jobs, and families gathered for evening meals. To casual observers, nothing had changed, but the galaxy would never be the same. Every government now knew the truth about humanity. Every military commander understood the consequences of threatening human